What I'm about to tell you is, without doubt, one of the weirdest, one of the most bizarre, strangest things that have ever happened to me. It is incredibly bizarre. Anyway, this is a location in Tokyo, Japan. This is Omotesando. So, this is back in 2015. I'm over here with my university. What I'm about to tell you took place on a day when we were separated from the main group. As in total, we were like 20 people. But on this particular day, I was with two other of my friends. Let's call one of them Eleanor, and let's call the other Megan. There may have been a third. We'll call her Nancy. I can't recall if she was there or not, but hey. I believe Eleanor, there was this cafe Eleanor wanted to check out that like a favorite artist of hers or an artist she really likes either frequents or helped design it. So we went over here. We'd never been there. I think this was about halfway through our stay. Until then, we'd just been to like the very touristy areas like Harajuku and like checking out shrines and stuff like that. Now the story takes place on this main street down over here, and that's where we're gonna go. This picture was taken in 2016 though, so there's gonna be elements to the story that were there then that are no longer there now. So we came out of here. Immediately we noticed that it's a very different looking place than we were used to. There was an absence of youth because everywhere we'd gone there were always like, you know, younger people with the really trendy styles that you don't really see anywhere else. Lots of tourists. We didn't see much of that over here. This is where we came from, out of the train station, and we had to like walk down the street, straight down. So, unbeknownst to us at the time, as I was saying, this cafe that we're looking for was really hidden off the beaten path. It was behind a bunch of these buildings. We had no idea of knowing this. Our plan was to walk down the street. We knew the name of the place, so we'd see it and we'd walk in. Best laid plans, am I right? So, we walk down, and we don't find anything. Yeah, like, if you've never been to Tokyo, not a lot of people, it's difficult to find people that speak English. It's also difficult to find signs and like directions and maps and stuff like that in English. It's not like going to, say, Europe or Africa or something like that. A little background fact about me, I studied Japanese for 2 years. 2 years. I failed them both really bad. I also watch a ton of anime. I couldn't have known you would help me as much as I did over here. So we relied on me to do that. The plan was to walk up and down the street, right? Asking people. Now, the part of the story where this diverges from, because this is in 2016, when we were actually down there was 2014 or 2015, like in February. There was a place that we're doing constructions on. Let's say it was here, because I can't really recall exactly where it was, but let's say it's one of these, right? They're constructing here, okay? This means that there's this, or doing renovations. This means that there's this big scaffolding, and the scaffolding is cutting off half the pavement. So keep this in mind. We only have access to half the pavement. So like this half over here, which means if people gotta get by, you know, it gets cramped. They gotta like do the whole excuse me. I gotta get through. I gotta like walk by to get to the other side, like that thing. We, for whatever reason, are loitering in this area, asking anyone we can find. I see someone coming down the street. I think it's a third person I intend to ask. And I walk up to her. And decide to ask her, you know, excuse me. She's a bit older. I'd say maybe she's in her 40s. She's very well dressed. I think she was wearing like a fur like coat or something like that. Because it's quite cold. It's like February and all that stuff, right? Yeah, she wasn't anything like anyone I'd asked at that point, because I was mostly just angling my questions at the youth. You know, the kind of people that would frequent the cafe we're on our way to. But whatever, I decided to ask her, and this is what happened. I say, excuse me. She keeps walking. I'm like, maybe she didn't hear me. So the nature of how this works is she's keeping on walking. She's walking towards me as I said, excuse me. She hasn't made eye contact or anything. So I take a step closer. I say, sumimasen again. I say, excuse me, for the second time. She looks into my eyes, and I swear to God, her eyes go like this. They were like the biggest eyes I've ever seen in my life. A complex series of emotions wash across her face. I think I saw surprise. I definitely saw surprise. I definitely saw fear. I saw bewilderment. Like, her eyes are wide open. All these emotions are going through her. And like, she, at this point, she's still walking towards me, like slowly, right? And now she's at the point where like the pavement is really, really narrow. So she's got to get by us, right? But there's a scaffolding, and she's also really afraid, or something. But she's not afraid enough. She's not afraid enough that like she would pick another path. She has to keep coming towards us. So what she does is she goes up towards the scaffolding like this. Like some kind of stealth game, and like she's flat up against it. Her eyes are like really, really wide, looking at me like this. But she has to get by me without touching me, and like I was so confused. I had no idea what was going on. So the worst part of this is that when and on top of that, she begins to make these noises I've never heard a human being make. It's like kind of like a whimper or a murmur. Like she wants to make a noise, but she can't. She's too afraid. I was surprised. I've never seen anything like this happening in my life. As far as I know, I hadn't done anything or looked in any such way that I was like gonna threaten her. All I had said was, excuse me. So I follow up by shakingly, like very, very shakily asking, Daijobu desu ka? Which is like, I guess, are you alright or is everything okay or something like that. A fear of God in her eyes. She can't even say anything, but she's still trying to get past us without touching me. So all of this happened so fast, it warped my perception of time. I think everything I'm describing to you, only 5 to 10 seconds have passed. Now, Eleanor, mad creds to her. She took my arm, she said, let's just go, and like we walked away, we got out of there, and I only thought about this after the fact, but we must have been causing a lot of ruckus, a lot of noise, because we're in the middle of the city. People are walking back and forth. It's like broad daylight in the middle of a busy street. Had we lingered there any longer, we would have caused like some kind of scene. Maybe people would have intervened. I don't know. It was really bizarre. But my friend Eleanor grabs me. She's like, yeah, let's go. And as we're walking, she's going like, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. It's not your fault. And like, I'm confused. And when I met with situations of confusion like this, I start laughing, I start chuckling, and that must have made the situation look even worse, because she's fearing for her life up against the wall like this, and I'm laughing, I'm like chuckling. It must have looked really bad. Anyway, Eleanor intervened, got us out of there. Once we got clear of the whole situation, we just sat down and tried to decompress, because none of us could fathom what had happened. None of us could believe. And like, then I start feeling bad. I've done nothing wrong, but I start feeling bad. I'm like, whoa, why was she so afraid? What could have happened? Now, I'm just here to tell the story. I'm not gonna throw any assumptions or anything like that. Believe me, I've thought of this day several times since then, and I've accepted I'll just never have an answer unless I speak to the person that it concerns directly. Now, all that happened. The rest of the trip was all great, all nice. We had a wonderful time. There was no situation like that ever again. But man, was that weird. Man, was that bizarre. And then we eventually found the cafe. We asked some people, happened to know English, pointed us in the direction. We found it. All's well that ends well. But yeah, that's that story. One of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me.